Hello everyone. In today's video I'm going to show you how to make a very simple basic loop using wire. And why this is important is because when we make any kind of wire work jewelry, we want to try to make sure that our loops are sort of uniform so that our finished product looks a little more professional rather than, having done a choppy job. So it's a very basic video, very basic tutorial on how to make simple loops, and hopefully by the end of this you will be able to get all your loops to look uniform and right. So for this you're going to need your round nose pliers, you're going to need your chain nose pliers, and you're going to need a nice little cutter. Now I would recommend trying your 20 gauge wire to make the loops, but if you are just starting out and you don't want to worry about sort of maneuvering your wire and you just want to get the technique, if you're doing this just for the technique for now, then you could also use a 22 gauge wire just because it's more bendable and you won't have to worry about sort of maneuvering your wire. You're just going to be focusing on the technique, and then once you get your technique right, of course you can then move on to your projects and use whatever wire it calls for, and just have some beads handy so you can practice your loops. They can be any size, that again depends on your project, and a ruler for measurement if you need it. So we're going to get started. I am just going to pull some wire out right here, and we're going to start with a piece of wire. Now when you're starting with your loop, first of all you want to get rid of this kink right here. Now when you're chopping that off, you want to make sure that you are cutting your wire flush. Now your cutter is going to have a flush side and it's going to have a not so flush side. So you want to use the flush side when cutting the wire because you don't want your wire to be beveled. So this is what a flush cut would look like. It's nice and clean. Now if I were to cut it with the not so flush side, going to be a little beveled. So you want to make sure that you're using your flush side to cut the wire before making any loops so that your loop is nice and flush. Now from there, you're going to use your round nose pliers to make your loop. Now it really depends on how wide you want to make your loops. If you want them to be really wide, then you want to make your loop towards the bottom part of your pliers. And if you want narrow loops, then you would sort of move up. Now for this purpose, I'm going to use a point somewhere in between just for my project. And you're going to take your wire, the flush cut, and you're going to place it in between your pliers. Now it's very important to make sure that your wire is not popping up. Just trying to make sure you can see that. If it's popping up, you're going to be able to feel it with your finger, and you don't want that because if you try to make a loop with the wire up, it's going to end up in a very funny shape. So you want to make sure that when you're holding your wire, you can't feel it on top. Now from here, you're just simply going to rotate your pliers away from you, so away from your body. So you're going to rotate the pliers away, then you're going to loosen the grip, bring the pliers back towards you, retighten your grip, and then rotate. And you're going to do that as many times as you need to until you get to the point where the edge of your wire is now touching the other point on the wire. And that's going to look like a P right there. And from here, you're just going to take your chain nose pliers, bring it to the neck of the loop, gripping the loop, and then just kink it back a little bit, just a kink. And that's going to give you a nice, perfect loop. Once you have your loop, actually before we move on to the bead, I'm going to show you what happens if you let your wire sit out, which we decided was going to be a no-no. So here we are. I know the point that I want to make my loop at, and I'm letting my wire sit out, which we shouldn't be doing, but let's say accidentally we let it sit out. And now I'm going to start to rotate away from me, bring the pliers back, re-grip, rotate away from me, and until of course the point where both the wires touch. And what happens now, instead of a nice P, you have this weird oval shape. So we start again, doing it the right way. Again, making sure you have a flush cut at the end. Going back to the point where you want to make your loop. For me, it's somewhere here. And again, making sure that your wire is not jutting out. And we make our loop just as we did the first time around until both ends of the wire touch. We have a nice little P. Use your chain nose pliers to grip just at the neck and just kink it back a little. And that's it. We have our loop. Now from here, you're going to take your bead and you're going to string that on. And now you want to make a loop on the other side. Now this is the tricky part. Not so tricky actually once you sort of figure out how much wire you need. We're going to have to cut this wire to a point where we can make the same exact size loop on this end. Now how do you figure that out? Well, with practice, because that really, how much wire you're going to need on this end is really going to depend on the size of your loop. For me, because I've made this particular size of loop several times, I know that I need just about 1/2 inch of wire this end. To start out with, you could use your ruler if you want to, but once you start making a ton of these, it's just going to go quick. You're not going to need your ruler. You're going to be able to eyeball it. So I know that I need just about 1/2 inch, but just to sort of give you an idea of what it would look like here, this is, so I need just about that much. And that's where I'm going to cut my wire. Again, making sure you're cutting with the flush side. This is how much I'm going to need, and so that's where I'm going to cut it. Notice I'm holding the other end of the wire because if you don't, sometimes it just goes flying all over and you don't want that. And that's it. So I cut it, and this is how much I need, and this is how much I have left to make the same exact loop on the other side. Another important thing you want to keep in mind is you want to remember that point on your round nose pliers that you used to make this first loop, because you want them both to be uniform. You don't want to have one big loop and then one tiny loop. That's just going to make your project look choppy. So I know just from practice that this is where my point is. But if you want, you could use a little Sharpie or something, or a little sticker or tape, just to mark a point if you're having trouble, remembering it, just so that all your loops are sort of uniform and the same size. So I'm going to go ahead and place it right here because I know this is my point. Again, making sure that the wire is not jutting out, and I'm going to make the loop just as we did. And there. And you'll notice that my loop has ended just above the bead. And that's what we want. We don't want a lot of gap between the bead because you don't want your bead sliding front and back. And I'm going to come in with my chain nose pliers and kink this back. Okay, and that's it. Now we have uniform loops on both sides. And on this side. Another thing to note is you don't want your bead to be too tight. So you don't want your bead so tight, both loops so tight that your bead has no room to move. You don't want that. You want to have just a tad bit of room so your bead can slide a little bit, just so that your final piece of jewelry looks graceful. And this is pretty much it about making loops. Once you make a ton of these, you can connect them together. You can make anklets, you can make, you know, necklaces, you can even make earrings if you attach your wires to the top of it. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a ton of these, and then I'm gonna come back and show you how to link them together, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so here I am now. I have made a whole bunch of these and I have linked them together. I kind of went ahead and did that so that I'm not holding you up for the entire, you know, the entire time, and I'm going to show you how to do one. Now there's a way to actually open your loops. What you don't want to do is you don't want to take your pliers, hold the loop, and just sort of crack it open this way. So if that's your loop, you don't want to just open it like that. What you want to do, so I'm going to put that away because that's really useless. That's not how we're going to do it. You're going to hold your loop at the edge and you're going to move it up or back. So you're not going to open it like this. You're going to open it either like this or like this. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hold it and I'm going to open it like that. And once you've done that, you're just going to go ahead and attach your link, and then you're going to close it up the same way you opened it. And when you do that, you're going to notice that there is going to be a bit of a gap in your loop. And that's normal. You're just going to tighten that. I'm going to hold my pliers, again, up and down motion. So you really want a rocking motion to put it together. There, I'm just going to do a little rocking motion until it comes together. And there. It's closed down. And once you're done attaching all your pieces, here I have these toggles. I've already attached one end of it. I'm going to go ahead and attach the other end the same way by opening the loop as we should. So again, you don't want to open it wide. You just want to open it like up or back. So I'm going to go up, going to up, attach this. Oops, missed. There we go. And I'm going to close it back up. Just excuse me if this video is not too clear. This is actually my first jewelry making video, so I think once I review this, after I'm done, it'll give me a better idea of, you know, how I need to work on the lighting and what angles to show you everything on. So just bear with me if this isn't, you know, perfect. But anyway, so here's our simple basic bracelet. Put it around you. Very easy, very simple. Again, making loops is very easy. It's just that you want to make sure that they are uniform so that your final piece of jewelry looks uniform. You really don't want one tiny loop, one large loop. It just looks choppy. But that's it. Making loops is really very easy. You probably won't need a ruler after you've made 2 or 3 of these. You'll just be able to eyeball you know, your wire and really just be able to tell how much you need. But again, just practice with cheap wire first, and in no time you will be making perfect loops for all your projects. And I hope this was helpful, and I will probably see you guys again with hopefully some more videos. Thank you very much for watching my video, and I hope you enjoyed it.